So with Cliosoft, I mean, what I want to do is at least, you know, kind of explain what this talk is going to be about. Typically, a lot of the speakers that have been here have talked about the various IPs that they have developed. Cliosoft's talk today is going to be very different. It's going to be more focused on how do you take that IP information and track it across your design projects, and hoping that the reuse component of a project becomes a real vision within the company. So typically the IP reuse vision has been around for many years. A lot of companies have tried to promote the vision within the enterprise, saying we need to start reusing blocks. We need to develop the chips faster. And that vision has always lacked the reality in some cases because the tools haven't been there to support that vision. So we have a solution that we'll talk about on how we have a solution on a product that helps you with that vision of making reuse a reality. So before I start there, I just want to give you a brief introduction to the company itself. Cliosoft actually has been around for many years. We just completed our 20 years anniversary, and we're based in the Silicon Valley in Fremont, California. Our solutions from day one has always focused around design data management and IP management products in the industry. We have a wide range of customers, 250 customers that use our products, companies ranging from large semiconductor companies like onsemi to Toshiba Memory to various other companies, a lot of startups that use Cliosoft for their data management solution, and also to share the data between the remote sites and design centers that they have. And we have offices around the world that help support the product as well. So hopefully that gives you a quick introduction to the company and what the company is about and the products that we have. So today the focus is on the reuse vision itself. And a lot of times when customers talk about IP, they only consider design data to be the IP. And what we want to do is kind of change that mindset a little bit. It's not just the design data that's the IP, but it could be a wide range of other types of documents or best practices or methodologies that your company has that could be considered to be an intellectual property within the company. So all of that put together and available in a common platform, and having it available for the engineers to easily find in the company gives an amazing result at the end of the day, because now it's easier for them to access that information within the organization. So what are the reasons that the IP reuse vision is actually limiting? The first is a lot of times the data itself is kind of in certain silos. The people work in business units and the data belongs to that business unit, and nobody's sharing across that business unit. It could be physical boundaries. You may have a company that has 4 or 5 design centers and the data gets trapped because it's physically bounded to that location. We also see sometimes companies buying third-party IPs where there are certain licensing agreements that have to get signed, and therefore only one unit knows about that third-party IPs. The other units have no idea that the company has purchased this IP or not. There's also no infrastructure. There is no tool or mechanism for the companies to share the IP. How do I communicate that information across the various groups I have? The data itself gets very isolated because of the applications. The data, the design data, the IP data may be stored in some data management system. It may be stored on some path on disk. It may be stored in emails. So the information is getting scattered across all of these applications that we use every day. And it also gets very difficult for the end user to communicate with the developers of the IP. How do I talk to that, guy in UK who's developed this PLL? How do I communicate with them? So, because we have no idea who the author of that IP was. And lastly, what is my motivation? Why should I share my IP with the rest of the company? I'm already under pressure because I need to get my chip out the door. What is my incentive of sharing that IP with everybody else? So these are some of the reasons that we see are roadblocks as to how users and companies don't really fulfill the vision of reusing data. So the solution that we came up with, and this has been a development tool for us for the last 2.5 years, is a product called designHUB. And designHUB focuses on three major components. The first one is providing an entire IP reuse ecosystem. It's not just an IP catalog, but it's actually a whole ecosystem built around how you use your IPs. You can find IPs, you can track the traceabilities of issues against the IPs. The second is providing you with a dashboard, and that's important because when the user has to log into various systems to find information, we're able to provide everything and anything about a project, about an IP, about the business unit that they belong to in a unified homepage, kind of a dashboard. When you log in, you get all the information about things that you are interested in seeing, not the other way around. And lastly, taking advantage of crowdsourcing. It's a popular topic because take, for example, systems like Wikipedia. The reason Wikipedia became so popular is because there are so many individuals that contributed to that Wikipedia system. And not like Encyclopedia Britannica, where it was a single source of just relaying the information out. So we believe in the crowdsourcing aspect where you can have discussions around IPs and projects that you're part of as well. So when you take all of these three systems, the ecosystem, the dashboard, and the crowdsourcing, you have an infrastructure put in place for reusing IPs across the organization. So the first aspect we're going to focus on is the IP ecosystem itself. We help you with finding the IP, and it could be an internal IP or a third-party IP within the organization. And I see some pigeons or birds running around. So you have a way for you to find an IP, and you can go through various categories to find the IP. You can do quick searches saying I'm looking for a TSMC 45 nanometer IP that I'm interested in looking for. Then there's a way that once you find the IP, you need to find out how do I integrate that IP into my chip. So there is a way for you to communicate with the developers and see if that IP actually works for you. And of course, now you need to share the IP back into the system, so we make it easy for you to upload the IP and its content, the metadata, into designHUB as well. So designHUB is a complete web-based application. It allows you to span it across the whole organization. And once you find an IP, you can get the details of that IP, what are the quality metrics, if it's past certain checklist or not. It helps you track any issues that have been reported against the IP as well. So you can not only at the IP level, but the whole hierarchy. You can see if there's any issues that have been reported with that whole hierarchy of the IP. And if you're in the automotive or defense business, then you need a system that helps you archive how IPs are being used across those various projects. And designHUB maintains that archive for you. We've also put in mechanisms to help you kind of incentivize the user to share IPs. That's been the biggest problem or challenge is how do I incentivize my engineer? Do I give him $100 every time he uploads an IP? So, there are different flows that you have, but the system has a way to give you accolades. It gives you a scoring. And every time you do something in designHUB, your reputation in the company kind of builds up along with it. So that's an incentive for engineers to share more IPs within the company. So let's just talk about a little flow of how do I download an IP. Well, it's very easy. You log into the designHUB, and this is hosted locally in your corporate environment. This is not on the cloud or anything like that, but this is local because we want it to be an enterprise kind of secured within the enterprise as well. So you would log into your designHUB web browser page, and you can go ahead and do searches. You can compare. Let's say if you're looking for a crypto IP, you may come back with several crypto type of IPs. You can say, okay, let's compare what are the differences between those IPs. If it's an IP that you like, you can log into that IP and see what are the data sheets for that IP, what are the attributes or metadata associated with it. You can also have communication or a knowledge base going on within the IP of that page, so you can communicate with the author of the IP as well. Once you like the IP, you can request a download of that IP, and that may go ahead and trigger something called a workflow, which says that you may need to be authorized user to download the IP. And once you get that approval, you can go ahead and download the IP into your work area. So it's a very simple process for users to download data into their projects. Similar with the upload, how do I push this data into designHUB as well? You have specs, you have design data that needs to get pushed into a catalog of some type, so you can go into designHUB, you can upload all the information into designHUB. You can make sure that certain quality metrics are met, certain metadata is filled in. If it's a hard IP, you may have different kind of questions you're asking. If it's a soft IP, there may be different questions that get answered as well. And again, that can trigger some kind of a workflow. Maybe managers or IP librarian needs to approve it. And once it's approved, then you can go ahead and push it into the system so users can easily find that IP within the organization. So these are the various kind of flows that users can go through for either uploading or downloading the IP from designHUB. Now, all of this ecosystem comes with a management oversight, which means that you can always put in place access controls, so you can restrict who can search for IPs, and if they have access to even look at the details of the IP. What is the controls of who can view and download the IP? Maybe there's export laws that restrict you on who can download IP, so you can put in those restrictions. There's also workflows that get triggered, and we'll talk about workflows in a few minutes. You can also trace the usage, which IPs get utilized the most as well within the system. And if you're using any third-party IPs, then you can maintain kind of an audit, because occasionally you get asked to run an audit to give some reports back to the vendor saying how many cores were used or what kind of projects were utilizing it. So all of those metrics are recorded and can be reported on. So let me talk a little bit about these workflows, because this is a very important portion of how the designHUB ecosystem kind of works. What a workflow is essentially there are certain steps that the users follow as they're downloading an IP or as they're uploading an IP. And those steps can be easily configured depending on the type of IP or the groups that are accessing the IP. So here's an example. When I'm interested in uploading an IP, I can go into my workspace, and from my workspace, whether it is using the SOS DM system or any other system, there's ways for you to upload the IP into designHUB. And once you upload it, it may automate some kind of a script that does some sanity checks to make sure that the qualities are met before it's been uploaded. And once it's done that, it may go through a first set of approval where maybe an IP librarian has to say, okay, yes, I'm okay with the checklist on this IP, and it may get sent to a manager who says, yes, I'm okay with my business unit publishing this IP, and now it's available into designHUB. So these steps are all configurable, and you can actually define them into the designHUB workflows. The same can happen on a download. Let's say I find the IP that I'm interested in, but it has some third-party license component to it. So once I request the download, it may go ahead and trigger a request for an agreement to get signed. So it may be an electronic signature, or maybe there's some PDF file that I have to upload saying that I'm okay with this agreement. Once that is done, it may be sent off to the legal team so that they can verify that this has been authorized, and they can go ahead and sign off saying, yes, I'm okay with this user downloading the IP, and now it's available for that engineer to access the IP. So instead of making something just available for the whole company right away, you can actually put in place some flows on how the data gets downloaded as well. So it's not just a simple download, but a certain flow that gets followed. And of course, if there's agreements or license agreements that get signed, that is all available in the system, so you know how many projects are authorized to use that particular IP as well. So this is actually a feedback that we got from one of our customers that they were very interested in. It kind of delayed the product rollout, but it actually helped improve it quite a bit, because this is something that a lot of customers want to put in place, is how do I define the flow of getting download an IP or upload an IP. So where is the actual data being stored for designHUB? It's not really limited. what designHUB is going to do is just store the metadata. What are the attributes like the gate counts or the checklist that you may have? So it stores all of that information. But the actual data may reside anywhere. It could reside in part of the designHUB platform, or it could be stored in our SOS data management system. It could be stored in Subversion. It could be stored in Git or Perforce, or even it could be a path on disk. So it's not really tied to a particular DM system. And since it's kind of agnostic as far as what tools you can use the data to store it, you can really manage any type of data. It could be digital IP, it could be analog IP, it could be managed in various systems, or it could be just a zip file that you upload into designHUB. So users would use designHUB to just find the IP, and then once they want to actually use the IP, it could be stored anywhere and they can access it from that system itself. So the second component was the whole dashboard approach that we have. This is kind of the home page for that user. Remember, if I wanted to get information about a particular IP or library that I'm interested in, I would have to log into the data management system to find out all the details about the IP. I may have to log into issue tracking or bug tracking system like Jira or Bugzilla to find out what are all the bugs related to that particular IP. There may be a wiki homepage that I have to log into to see any communication that happens. And we're kind of changing that mindset. Instead of saying that instead of being an app-centric environment, it's going to be more of a user-centric environment. The user logs into designHUB. This is the home page for them. They get all the information filtered from data management systems, from bug tracking systems, from verification systems displayed on one page. So now they're seeing all the relevant information that they are interested in working with. It helps maintain all different teams because there are a lot of teams involved in a project kind of working together in sync. So you don't have to send a lot of emails out. You can actually use designHUB as a collaboration platform to communicate with different engineers that are working on this project. You would have access to all the latest documents, any specs, any changes or ECO requests that have gone on, all available within this web page. So you get tasks that are assigned to you, and you can say, yes, I've completed the task, so you can kind of keep track of who is working on what part of the project. There's also discussions that happen. I mean, there may be an expert in the company who's really good at working on some PLL, and you can actually talk to that expert and have a communication, and you don't have to know his email address. Typically, a lot of times the communication barrier is that I don't know who is the expert in the company. This way, you'll be able to find somebody who is knowledgeable about a certain topic and discuss with that person. And of course, you have a knowledge base that keeps growing within the company. You start with a small system. Again, Wikipedia started with the small topics, and it grew over time because everybody started contributing to it. And the same idea can be used in a large enterprise as well, as that people and engineers and different groups will start communicating within that system, and that knowledge base will grow over time. So this is really, our solution to making that design reuse vision a reality. We want to make sure that you can manage any type of IP. It could be design files, documents, it could be scripts that you worked on, and provide you that whole infrastructure that is required to make that vision a reality. So, also including the knowledge base that goes with it, which is very important because now you're not just providing a catalog of the IP, but you're helping grow the integration part, how projects have used it in the past, things of that sort that get all tracked in one system. And so that really helps us with making that reality become available as a product. So that concludes my presentation. And again, if you have any questions, you can visit our website at Cliosoft.com to find out more details.